walked out the door of one of these old buildings and there were 6 or 8 wolves.
We are going to be first listening if they're in the area. We'll pick up the radio signal. We're going to try to locate them. We're going to home in on them.
People have a fear of wolves, and it's really that wolves have a strong fear of people.
You can daily do small loops, big loops, different loops every day.
Funding for this program was provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, Safe Basements of Minnesota, your basement waterproofing and foundation repair specialist since 1990. Peace of mind is a safe basement. Grand Stay Hotels, featuring 35 hotels in 8 states and growing. Every guest, every time with Grand Stay. More on the web at grandstayhospitality.com. Diamond Willow Advanced Care Assisted Living, providing custom homes with smaller settings designed especially for high care needs. Live Wide Open, telling stories of why people have chosen to live wide open in West Central Minnesota. More at livewideopen.com. Western Minnesota Prairie Waters, quietly beautiful and wildly connected.
Few people on the globe know more about wolves than Dave Meach, a world-renowned scientist and founder of the International Wolf Center in Ely.
Well, I've studied wolves now for 61 years, I guess it is. I liked animals that have to hunt for a living. And of course, one of the top hunters in North America is the wolf.
Meach started researching wolves as a Purdue University graduate student.
At that time, 1958, wolves were considered vermin, generally, and that is they were not protected anywhere in the U.S. or Canada for that matter. Actually, probably they weren't really protected anywhere in the world except for national parks or something. The government had an entire agency to try to wipe the wolves out of most of the U.S., and they succeeded. I mean, the only, by the time I started, the only wolves left in the 48 states were the ones in Minnesota and the ones on Isle Royale. The general attitude of the public was, you know, why are you going to study these, you know? And you should just kill them off or get rid of them. And I said, look, I'm a student. This is I'm going to be a scientist, and that's what science does. We don't make judgments about animals, we just study what they do. When I was finishing up my undergraduate work at Cornell, I fell into a wolf project. That is, there was a professor who had funds to study the wolves and the moose on Isle Royale in Lake Superior, and he asked me to do the study. And so I was primed. I mean, sure. I said, this is the largest carnivore in North America. Sure, I'll do it. Isle Royale is a 210 square mile island in Lake Superior, sort of a world of its own out there, a total wilderness national park. The only large carnivore out there is a wolf, and the only large prey animal there was the moose. Isle Royale was a very simple system, one predator and one prey. I used a small aircraft, had a pilot there, and during the winter, and we flew around and found wolf tracks and followed them. I was able to watch the wolves interact. There was a pack of 15 primarily, and I was able to watch them interact with about 131 moose. The upshot of that was the wolves had a very low success rate, roughly around 7%. So of all the moose they were interacting with, you know, some of the moose detected the wolves before they were very close and they ran off, and the wolves never got near them. Others stood their ground and let the wolves come right up to them and sort of fought off the wolves. Some just outran the wolves. But in the end, generally, it was the ones that ended up running, that some of those the wolves were able to catch and kill. I learned that the wolves were sort of ending up with the old and the sick, the young and the weak, and that kind of thing.
In 1986, Dave accepted a National Geographic assignment to study Ellesmere Island near the North Pole. The island's white wolves had never been hunted or trapped, so they were tame. In early spring, his plane landed at a weather station where he stayed for 10 days.
I walked out the door of one of these old buildings and there were 6 or 8 wolves. And so started following them around with a snowmobile. Found out that I could follow them around with a snowmobile, and they tolerated me in that. I went back in early July when I knew they'd be denning. And I had a 3-wheeler at that time rather than a snowmobile. So I went back there and managed after several days to see a female that I could tell was nursing. I could see her nipples, basically. I followed her over a period of days. She'd lose me, and I'd follow her the next day and then, to the den. I found the den of pups, and I realized these wolves let me be there. So came back the next day with a tent, set up a tent about roughly 1/8 of a mile, maybe a 1/4 mile from the den. Finding that den was, it really was a highlight of my life.
The National Geographic assignment continued through the summer of 1987 and resulted in the film White Wolf. But Dave kept coming back to follow the same pack for 25 summers. Finding the pack's den could be challenging because they changed locations. In 2007, the wolves moved to a den that Dave couldn't get to because of a large fjord.
The question I had is that, okay, I've been doing this for 20-some summers. Am I going to get enough out of it when I can't be near them and can't follow them? I can only look at them from a couple miles away with a spotting scope. Is this really worth coming back for? Or could I start studying them in a new way?
Dave was leading other wolf studies in northeast Minnesota, Denali, and Yellowstone National Park using radio and GPS collars. In 2009, he finally decided to collar one of the Ellesmere pack. Instead of living with wolves, from now on, he would track them on his computer.
It was terrible hard after 25 summers, but I was getting older, my grandkids were learning how to drive and all this stuff, and I realized, I can't keep doing this. I didn't need to be there any longer, and I knew it was time to just give it up.
In 2011, Dave hired Shannon Barber Meyer to assist him with field research. She had worked with Dave more than a decade earlier as a graduate student.
Her work involves during the summer teaching a crew and working with them in live trapping wolves, putting radio collars on them, and taking blood samples and irritating all that, and then following them by aircraft. And some of them have GPS collars, so we can watch them on the screen. The overall backbone of that project, since I started in '68, is to monitor the population of the wolves in that area and try to see what changes when the population changes and why it changes. Why are there big swings in it and that kind of thing.
Today we're going to be going on an aerial telemetry flight. We're going to be searching for wolves and white-tailed deer that have radio collars on them. We are going to be first listening if they're in the area. We'll pick up the radio signal. We're going to try to locate them. We're going to home in on them. And then from the air, we will try to see how many wolves are traveling with the collared wolf. So over time, you get this long-term population trend of the pack wolves in our study area. We can learn other things as well. The collars have sensors on them that tell us when the animal hasn't moved for 4 hours, which usually means the animal's dead, or the collar has been chewed off sometimes in the case of wolves. And so then we can hike into that location and necropsy it, do kind of like an autopsy to figure out what the cause of death is. We can also track wolves as they form new packs or as they disperse. We can locate their den sites, potentially even investigate kill sites where they've killed maybe moose or deer, things like that.
From the air, Shannon locates wolves from 2 packs, each with a collared wolf, and records their numbers, behaviors, and colors to help identify them later. What researchers have discovered about wolves and their prey is they tend to keep each other in check. When moose numbers started declining in 2009, the wolf population declined a few years later because they had less to eat. Then both populations stabilized.
One of the things that sets Dave apart from other researchers is his singular focus and his determination, his persistence. There are many people that have studied wolves. Dave wasn't the first, he won't be the last, but he has been studying them nonstop since the 1950s when he started his PhD work on Isle Royale. Now there's this long-term data set that is the longest data set anywhere in the world on a predator-prey species outside of the Isle Royale National Park study that he began his PhD work on.
Throughout his decades of research, Dave has found the wolf is often misunderstood.
There are two extremes in terms of people's outlook on wolves. There's the extreme where people really thoroughly hate the animals, and where the other extreme where they think wolves just can do no harm. On one side, people say that the wolves just kill for sport. It's very dangerous for wolves to attack most of their larger prey, and so they don't do it for fun or for sport. They do it because that's what they have to do to eat.
Even when hunting in a pack, each wolf is still smaller than its prey, and Dave has documented wolves being killed by deer, moose, and elk. But wolves will kill multiple animals when they have the opportunity, like during hard winters when deer are starving and slow. But they can't eat them all at once, so they'll come back until the carcasses are clean.
People come along in snowmobiles and they find 6 or 8 deer killed by wolves and only 1 or 2 of them eaten, and they say, oh, the wolves were just killing for sport. Well, it really wasn't for sport.
Wolves can be a problem on farms and ranches.
Wolves don't make any distinction between a cow and a deer and a moose. They're all just hoofed animals that are vulnerable if the wolves can overcome whatever defenses they have. Well, it turns out that sheep and cows and that don't have the defenses that the wild species do. They're not as alert, they're not as strong, they don't fight as hard, and so when wolves find them, it's easy pickings.
Some states reimburse farmers if they can prove their animals were killed by wolves. Since they are on the threatened list in Minnesota, problem wolves can be killed by the DNR, but not hunters. In western states, there are wolf hunting seasons now. While wolves in some parts do have a bad reputation, they have a role in our ecosystem.
They control the deer and the moose populations and that kind of thing. And with hunting dropping, because hunting's been the other control on some of these things, wolves could become more important in that respect, yeah. And there's a chance that they might help minimize this spread of CWD, the chronic wasting disease, which has been a problem in deer and elk out west. The future of wolves, I would say, looks very good, and not just in the 48 states, but throughout the world. Wolves are increasing all across Europe and across pretty much the northern U.S. They just recently got into Colorado.
Dave continues to work part-time studying wolves in northeast Minnesota and Yellowstone, which he visits 2 or 3 times a year.
I'm, 15, 17 years past full retirement. It's been a great life, and I've collected a lot of data, and I haven't published it all, and I feel a strong obligation to get as much of it out as I can. So as long as I can, that's what I'm going to do. Opened the Wolf Center in 1993.
Live wolves at the center are ambassadors to the wild who help people learn about gray wolf subspecies.
We have 4 ambassador wolves in our pack right now.
Welcome to Prairie Sportsman. I'm Brett Amundson, sitting along the shores of scenic Crane Lake. We got a beautiful day for an adventure here in northern Minnesota with these snowmobiles that we've rented from Voyageur Lodge. Not only are we going to go explore the hundreds of miles of trails in the area, but we're going to learn a little bit about the history of those trails as well.
We had a long day of trail riding in front of us,
Good, how are you guys doing?
with a plan laid out by Jim Jansen.
There's probably over 500 miles of groomed trails right in our area. You can daily do small loops, big loops, different loops every day. You could come and ride for 4 or 5 days and not see a lot of the same trail more than once.
Jim operates Voyageur Lodge with his wife Gretchen, In the summer, they run a fleet of houseboats on Crane Lake. And in the winter, they have brand new snowmobiles available for rent.
Voyager Lodge is in a perfect location. We're on the southern shore of Voyagers National Park. We're just west of the Boundary Water Canoe area, and we're just east of Superior National Forest, sort of where all three of those beautiful areas come together.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, you can, based on temperatures, you can decide if you're going to make a loop, for instance, that rides partially lake trails and partially land trails. Yeah, you're going through Voyagers National Park, you're going through state forest lands, and thankfully we've got some private landowners who have given us permission to run across their land so we can access other trails. It's quite the system.
It's never busy, and so you have a great chance to see wolves. If you're out at night to see northern lights, but all of it is just untouched and so clean and so gorgeous with the snow cover.
Our route would take us through the woods to the southwest, where we'd make a stop for lunch at a local favorite that's loaded with history.
We run a little establishment on Elephant Lake called Mel George's Elephant Lake Lodge. We cater to all types of sportsmen, fishermen, hunters, snowmobilers, ATVers, and anybody that wants to be in the middle of nowhere. We live on 10 miles of dirt road with no mail delivery. So it's perfect. We live in the sticks and the culture visits. Back in 1909, Cousin, which is 10 miles from here, was the Camp 1, the headquarters for Virginia Rainy Lake Logging Company.
The logging company had 143 camps set up between Cousin and the Canadian border. Most of the time, they could float the logs to where they needed to go. But above the Laurentian Divide, those logs floated north, which created some issues when you wanted logs to go south. So they set up a railroad system to transport timber. While most of the logging ended in the 1930s, remnants of Minnesota's booming forest industry remain, as the former railroad grades have made perfect snowmobile trails.
Actually, the lodge here is sitting on it's actually a rail camp. So it was a camp from Virginia Rainy Lake. My wife's parents acquired the land in the 60s. We're open for business in 85, and it was for sportsmen of all kind, but the Arrowhead Snowmobile Trail came through in 86, so a lot of it was anticipation of having the snowmobile traffic coming through. We put a new bridge across the Vermilion River, which was one of the old bridge sites. The trestles were still in the water there. And so that was for ATVs and now for snowmobiles as well. So the funding for the bridge came from IRRB, which is Iron Range Resource and Rehabilitation Board, which is our mining money. And they do a lot to put money back into the communities. And they want to see a bunch of more trails, because they realize the economic impact for these little small hole-in-the-wall places. We had the vision as a club as well to have we called it a Northwoods Tiki Hut. We wanted an elevated viewing platform with a roof over it. We had a nice spot over the Pelican River, about 4 miles from here. High rock overlook. So David Dill was employed by OR for a while before he became our state representative. So just a good guy for the area, great for motorized sport, great to have down at the legislature for anything up north. He made sure nobody forgot where Orr and Crane Lake were, or the whole area.
We ran those sleds just over 90 miles, through the woods and across lakes and swamps. One of the most scenic sections was in Voyager National Park, where we just sat back and enjoyed the ride. Voyager Lodge will rent snowmobiles through the middle of March as long as they have good trail conditions. Or bring up your own and learn more about the history of the region and the people who provided a chance for us to enjoy a ride through Minnesota's North Woods. The International Wolf Center in Ely offers visitors an immersion into the lives of gray wolves and the researchers who follow them. More than 40,000 people from around the world enter the Wolf Center every year to better understand the most misunderstood carnivore in North America.
Having the International Wolf Center be located in the heart of wolf country was really kind of the main reason for having it here, because it's surrounded by wolves, and those ambassadors help us to teach about the wolves that we have in our own area. People have a fear of wolves, and it's really that wolves have a strong fear of people. And most people, I don't think, realize that most wolves, their natural instinct is to run.
The Discover Wolves exhibit helps people get past their fears to view wolves from the eyes of research.
You can watch video that was actually taken inside of a wolf den in Voyageurs National Park, so you can see wolf pup development. You can also learn about how far wolves travel. They're amazing dispersers. There is a video that was taken from researchers that were up in the airplane, flying around in the area of Ely and tracking wolves that are collared in the Superior National Forest. We also have a field exam wolf, so you can try your hand at what happens when wolves are immobilized.
Live wolves at the center are ambassadors to the wild who help people learn about gray wolf subspecies.
We have 4 ambassador wolves in our pack right now, and they were captive born and they live with us for their entire life. The 2 youngest are Axel and Grayson. They are our Arctic wolves, and so in the wild they would be found in the Arctic. And then we have Bolts, and he is the one that is about to be 8, and he is a Great Plains subspecies, and that subspecies is found primarily in our area, which is Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin and Michigan. And Denali is the oldest in that exhibit pack at 12, and he is a northwestern subspecies, so in the wild he would normally be found in the Rocky Mountain area, Yellowstone National Park, parts of Canada. Right now we have all males, and this spring we should be adding a female to the mix.
The International Wolf Center was founded by wildlife scientist Dave Meach, one of the top wolf experts in the world, who started researching northeast Minnesota wolves in the late 1960s.
It got quite a bit of publicity. It was the only wolf project going on, certainly in Minnesota, and so people got interested in things like looking for wolf tracks, following wolves around, looking for kills, and it was clear that we were doing that. And so a lot of people would ask if they could join us, or could you take us out and show us a kill? Could you go out and howl to the wolves with us?
Dave and his crew tried to accommodate organizations and school groups, but they were busy conducting research. So Dave started outlining plans for an educational facility.
In the early 80s, the Science Museum of Minnesota came to me and wanted to build a wolf exhibit. They had the funding, actually, and they wanted the ideas.
Dave gave the Science Museum his ideas for creating a Wolves and Humans exhibit,
which was very popular. It got sent around to 6 or 8 different venues, American Museum of Natural History, National Geographic of Washington, that kind of thing. And then when the exhibit was done, when everybody was done with it, the museum asked if, should we take it apart, and, any ideas for this? And I said, yeah, let's build a wolf center, because now we have actually the guts of it. And so we used that as a lever to get funding to start a wolf center. And it took a few years, 7 or 8, but we got it and opened the Wolf Center in 1993.
4 years before the Wolf Center's grand opening, a temporary outdoor exhibit held wolf pups.
I came here as a kid In 1989, I somehow managed to talk my entire family into driving to Ely, Minnesota, and came and saw the wolves and have pictures of me and my dad standing next to the fence in front of the wolves. When I was a kid, I checked out every single book from the library that I possibly could about wolves, and most of them are written by Dave Meach. And I was reading them and I was taking pictures of the pictures just because I wanted so much to learn about wolves. And coming here as a kid and now being able to work here, it's just really a full circle for me, and it kind of boggles my mind almost every day that I write emails to Dave and I'm just like, hi Dave. And it was just this like, there was just no way in my head as a kid that I ever thought that that would happen. He's been able to study them all over the world and all over the country, and helping to spread that message and be so passionate about education and science, I think, is really the legacy that will be left. Dave started the International Wolf Center really to to start a place that was going to teach the world about wolves. Through Dave's vision and what we've been able to accomplish, we really have an international reach and are really able to do our mission well.
Funding for this program was provided by the Minnesota Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund, Safe Basements of Minnesota, your basement waterproofing and foundation repair specialist since 1990. Peace of mind is a safe basement. Grand Stay Hotels, featuring 35 hotels in 8 states and growing. Every guest, every time with Grand Stay. More on the web at grandstayhospitality.com. Diamond Willow Advanced Care Assisted Living, providing custom homes with smaller settings designed especially for high care needs. Live Wide Open, telling stories of why people have chosen to live wide open in West Central Minnesota. More at livewideopen.com. Western Minnesota Prairie Waters, quietly beautiful and wildly connected.